Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. We're going to be talking about the new administrative rules that we just rolled out on the 1st of July. And this is specifically focused to the local building departments and the inspectors. Of course, we will go over quite a few different things with respect to the manufacturers and installers and all the significant rule changes. I do recommend for those that are responsible parties for different areas of the program that they do read the new administrative rules in detail, just to make sure that you're not using this program or this hour to get a full breadth and depth of the rules. So with that, I'm going to jump into the slide deck. Some other administrative things. We've got a couple co-hosts on this. You should all be able to mute and ask questions if you want to. We also have a group chat going on. Also, you can always type in your questions in the chat. If you do want to ask questions along the way, you can do that. I might defer it to a future slide or at the end where we have the general discussion topics. But feel free to feel free to ask your questions whenever, but we want to make sure that we be respectful of everybody's time. And then again, at the end of the meeting is the big discussion and Q&A part of the presentation. So with that, let me share my screen. Can somebody tell me if they can see that screen? Okay, good. Thanks, Terry. So good. We've got the screen going. Welcome again. We want to make this as informative as possible for everybody. Welcome and introductions and overview. I've kind of talked about that just a little bit, but I do want to introduce the team that I have on the phone with me. Donnie Featherman, many of you know, the famous Donnie Featherman is the program manager for Building Codes and Standards. Christina Wilkes is our program coordinator for tiny homes. Yesenia is our MHIP installation person and program coordinator. And then Deborah Kosman is fairly new. I'm not sure everybody knows her, but she's taking care of FB and factory built non-residential registrations. So with that, it's a pretty basic agenda today. We're going to talk about a couple of ground rules. We'll talk about what's going on with building codes and standards. We'll talk about the new approved codes, and then new and modified rules when we'll focus on local building departments and inspectors, and then that wrap up and discussion that I mentioned. We are recording and we will post this to the website. We have a new link on the website under Building Codes and Standards where we're posting our newsletter and where we are posting this presentation along with this PowerPoint will also be up there. So if you're not getting our newsletter currently, which I think most of you are because you're on this call and that's who the distribution went to, please let me know or let somebody know if somebody forwarded you this email and said, hey, you may want to join this. If you want to get on that newsletter, let us know and we'll, it's going to be current events and technical alerts with respect to the program. So we're happy to add you. Just shoot me an email on that. We cannot change statute. We are given statute by the legislators, and that's how the rules are generated. And so if you have a problem that is based in statute, you can certainly tell us about it, tell me about it. The legislative session is starting to get up. It's going to gear up fairly soon and in time. I'm already starting to have dreams about the legislative session. It's a real busy time for us, and so if you have changes to statute that you think are mandatory, please or necessary, please let us know. We're only addressing Colorado law and Colorado rules. I've given this same presentation for manufacturers, installers, third-party agencies, and registered sellers. So some of those deal in multiple states. I think everybody on this this call is dealing pretty much with Colorado law and Colorado rules only. Our controlling statute, if you're not aware of it, is CRS 2432, 3301 through 2432, 3329. It also has definitions in it that are not repeated in the administrative rules, and there's reasons for that I won't jump into. But if you want to look at those definitions and the intent of that statute, that's not a bad read, especially if you're heavily involved in the factory built structure program. The tiny home bill is what drove the new rule change. That's HB 221242. We go through an extensive rulemaking. We have 15 people on that administrative or the technical advisory committee that helps modify those rules and interpret that statute. It represents local. We have 4 representatives, I think, from local building departments. We have tiny home representatives. We have manufactured housing representatives. We have modular representatives. We have installers, registered sellers. We have somebody from electrical, somebody from plumbing, an architect, somebody from the architectural community, somebody from the production community, somebody from the labor community. All those representatives meet to go through these rules and make changes to those. Those are then flowed up to the State Housing Board for their approval. And then they become, once they approve them, they become official, and we start implementing those. The latest administrative rules are effective on July 1st of this year. So they've been out for a little bit. Hopefully some of you guys are familiar with them. But back to the tiny home bill, it did more than just add tiny homes to factory built structure types. Tiny home is its own piece. I am going to spend some time in the discussion about tiny homes because I know a lot of you guys build local jurisdictions are dealing with tiny homes. I want you guys to know what a state certified tiny home is. I want you to know what a tiny home RV is. And then what the state takes care of and what you take care of. So if I forget, because I don't think it's on my discussion slide to talk about tiny homes, I want to do that. But that tiny home bill added some other additional information in there. As you know, legislators just throw things in occasionally. We're going to talk about foundations in areas of the state that don't have a local building department for factory built structures. That's going to be extremely relevant to the inspectors on this call. It also added wildland urban interface code to the list of local requirements that we pass on to our manufacturers. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. The rules that I reference all the time are our administrative rules. It's 8 CCR 1302-14. Again, they were effective 6/30, which was a Sunday, I think. The July 1st was a state holiday, and then that's basically when they took effect. What I did and what is on the website, if you guys want to go look under Building Codes and Standards website, if you scroll down to administrative rules, laws and policies, there's the new administrative rules, which is a clean version of the rules. And underneath that is the red line version. The red line version is very easy to use as a reference document, so you can see what exact changes were made. As you can see from the snippet that I've added on this slide, it's and tiny homes and tiny homes. We're going to talk a little bit about multifamily installations also, foundation systems I mentioned, and then so that red line version is going to be up until I think the end of this calendar year. Then I'll take that down. So if you want to grab a copy of those administrative rule red line changes, now's the time to do it, so you can have a very easy reference guide on what's changed and what's not changed. Christina's putting links in the chat also for that. Thank you, Christina. I want to talk a little bit about, as many of you know, what we do at Building Codes and Standards on a functional basis. You know, a lot of it is plan review that you guys don't see right up front, but the factories. And so there's three main areas, right? Plan review, inspections, and administration. The administration side is fairly straightforward. It's all the registration. We register manufacturers, installers, sellers, and inspectors. And then it's all the processing piece and collection of the fees, making sure the financial sureties are in place, shipping out insignias, very, very important part. And then we have a complaint program, and I'll talk a little bit about the complaint program in that discussion period too. Plan review, of course, we review QA manuals for all the registered manufacturers coming into the program. We also make sure that the construction plans are in compliance with the local jurisdiction requirements as well as the state requirements. And then we are also going to be doing foundation design review in areas of the state without a building department, and I'll talk about that. We've got a full-time engineer and a couple part-time persons in that plan review shop. We've got authorization for 2 more plan reviewers, 4 more full-time plan reviewers. We're going to get those positions filled pretty as soon as we can. Inspections, we have 3 inspectors that run around the state, right? They are responsible for all the factory built structures in the state. I have authorization to hire 3 more. We're in the process of getting that done. And then but we still depend heavily on the local jurisdictions, participating jurisdictions that are doing inspections on our behalf, as well as our inspectors, independent inspectors that are out there. Administration is fully staffed with 4 FTE. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we are with respect to codes, the new administrative rules did not really change our base codes. We're pretty much on the 2018 ICC codes, with the caveat that we're on the 2015 IECC, and the NEC has just changed. The State Electrical Board approved the new 2023 NEC, National Electrical Code, so we are on that. And of course, we don't change any of the HUD codes for HUD products coming into the state. But I'll go through and kind of highlight. We did make some amendments to some of these codes, and I'll highlight that fairly quick. And as most of you guys know, these are the state codes that all the manufactured housing, factory built structures that are coming into the state are built to. With respect to some caveats for local jurisdictions. Here's those local design standards that I've been talking about. We require the manufacturer to use the local winds and snow loads, as well as winter design temps for any factory built structures coming in. On fire safety, if fire suppression is required by a local jurisdiction, that is also required for the factory built structure coming into the state. One of the things that was added this year in the legislation and the administrative rules is wildfire risk. If a local jurisdiction has adopted a WUI code, Wildland Urban Interface Code, or any type of wildfire code that has components related to the structure itself, whether it's materials or design, those wildfire risk local design standards have to be included in the design of the structure, and that's effective immediately. Actually effective on July 1. All right, this is a pretty good place to pause and see if there's any questions right now before I do a dive into the actual rule changes. Anybody got any general questions at this point? Remember to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Hey, Sam, this is Eric Browning from Denver. Quick question.
Eric.
When is the, good morning. When is the state moving on to the 21 series of codes?
To the 21 codes? We have to be on the 21 IECC by January of 25, I believe. My guess is we go through another round of rulemaking, we may just bump up everything at that point in time. But there's no hard plan on doing that immediately.
Okay, thank you.
If I can get out of doing another rulemaking this year, I will, but I'm not sure I'm going to get out of it. Legislative session may drive that, but I may be doing that even beforehand. We'll just have to see.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
There's one in chat, Sam.
Okay, I see that. So if
Or
a
two.
local jurisdiction does not have wildfires, their state level requirement. No, not yet, but we see it in the making. It might come out next year as a part of the legislative session. And with these rules apply to areas like Montezuma County with no building codes. Yes, these rules apply to Montezuma or any of the areas of the state that do not have a local building department. So we will talk about that with respect to foundations, but the building codes themselves, those structures that come in from the manufacturers have to follow that code set that I just showed up there. When I get to foundations for you inspectors that are covering those areas, I expect lots of screaming from county commissioners and locals that have said, well, we don't have any building department, we don't have any adopted codes, you can't make me do that. But we'll handle that. This is a state statute and it does not exempt local jurisdictions or local counties that do not have a building department. We've added a list of those 13 counties, I think, that are actually don't have a building department on the website now. But they are going to have to run foundation design through us.
Hey, Sam, I just want to add something for the for each one of those questions. So the wildfire, you know, it was kind of new to me, but just for anybody else, if there is no fire protection going on in a jurisdiction, so let's say that there's a local jurisdiction that does not have a fire agency there to protect that area, if there is any requirements from the building code, that stuff does get deferred to the state fire and protection, right? But if the locals do not have any specific wildfire mitigation requirements, the state fire will not enforce anything unless these current changes that they're talking about for a statewide fire code take effect. There might be something in there that might stipulate that even in those jurisdictions, they do have to comply with any kind of fire requirements. The other thing is for the Montezuma, just for clarity, our codes are statewide codes. These are the minimum codes that a factory has to build or a manufacturer has to build to. So in jurisdictions that do not have building departments, they still have to comply with the minimum state adopted codes for our program. And then what was the other one? I think that was it. And then there's another
question,
one.
there's a new question in the chat. Does the local adoption of 2021 IECC supersede the state requirement of the 2015 IECC? The answer is no. And that goes for IRC and IMC, IPC, and everything else. The local jurisdiction requirements cannot drive the design of the manufactured building.
And the other thing to that is in our rule is it actually allows you to go down to the 2009 IECC if the locals have adopted the 2009 IECC. If they adopted the 2012, same thing. But the locals have to specifically adopt that code in order for us to allow them to go down to that year.
Yep, so there is a way to go back to those 2009 and 2012 codes, but we find that most of the jurisdictions are on 15, and that's where we are. We're seeing a lot of local adoption of 2018 and 2021 IECC, but that does not supersede the state base level of 2015. There's a question on the foundation requirements to apply to site-built buildings, only factory built. So David, that is a fantastic question, and I'll clarify that now. This is for factory built structures only, or for multifamily or hotels and motels built in areas of the state that do not have a local building department. So your traditional stick-built homes do not have to run foundation design through the state. Okay. So there's also a question in the chat about getting dealers getting denied because res check was done 2015 IECC. We're happy to talk to whoever is the responsible party down there. I think it's either the county or Pikes Peak, right? Building authority. But no, they should not be denying permits based on the 2015 IECC. We're happy to talk to El Paso County about that. All right, cool. Well, let's jump in. Keep those questions coming. Oh, let me go back. This slide here, our rules are set up as there's 7 rules with a lot of data behind them. Rule 1 covers definitions. Rule 2 is codes and standards, then fees, then manufacturers, sellers, installers, and enforcement. And that's how this slide program is organized. I'll do a dive into each one of those rules with major changes. Here's one that's going to affect everybody on this call. We've changed AC, alternative construction, to on-site construction, OC. So that and then we've updated that definition a little bit from the old AC definition. So if you were used to seeing the AC form, you'll now see an OC form asking if you want to do the inspections. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in the discussion period. We also updated the permanent foundation definition and the temporary foundation definition. So you guys may want to take a look at that. We are also now allowing remote video inspections. And we're finalizing the procedures on that. We'll get that out to everybody in that newsletter and alert thing that I mentioned earlier. So we are going to roll that out both for, and again, this was put in place primarily for tiny home manufacturers, but we're also allowing that for every registered manufacturer. And we may use it internally for some of our inspections also. We made a distinction between a tiny home and a tiny house. Just to get you guys thinking about tiny homes, the definition for a tiny home is that it's under 400 square feet. It's on a permanent vehicle chassis. It is designed to the IRC, and it can go on a temporary or a permanent foundation. And again, we'll have that tiny home discussion a little bit later. A tiny house is a 400 square foot or less modular unit that goes only on a permanent foundation. And so I'll talk a little bit of how we handle tiny homes in the IRC, but you can start thinking about that. We've done a couple of trainings for with CC. We did a CCICC training that had some really good attendance. We talked about focused on tiny homes. We are also talking, we're getting our roadshow out. Donnie's traveling around. I went over to the West Slope and did a presentation there. or the mountains, I think, did a presentation up there. We're willing to come, and if you want to put a group of you and your surrounding neighbors together on tiny homes, or please let us know, or we can get together and do a Zoom call or a Google Meet and do a tiny home training for any of the locals that want that. The vehicle chassis, of course, we added that to the definitions. We clarified the wildfire risk that came down through statute. And then the next definition I put in there is for registered sellers, because it's, I should have taken it off for this presentation, but sellers have to be registered with the program. For the code changes, there's 180 days to comply with the changes, and extensions can be requested in writing. The rule changes 2.1 IBC, we updated the ice barrier language, and that rolled over also into the IRC update. In the IRC, we also added the wildfire risk and foundations in areas of the state without a building department. We're added to table 2.2.1, or rule 2.2.1, table R301.21. We added in the IRC also this rule 2.2.13 regarding the interconnection of smoke alarms. It's a common problem we're seeing where the smoke alarms are not talking to each other. And then another significant change to the 2018 IRC is we took all the Appendix AQ in 2018 IRC was fairly basic for tiny houses. The 2021 IRC did an update and added a lot of information for tiny houses, and it could also be could be applicable to tiny homes. We took all that language out of the Appendix AQ in the 2021 IRC and moved it over as an amendment to our 2018 IRC Appendix Q. That kept us on the base of the 2018 and wasn't a single code update. But that's the changes you'll see in Appendix Q and as amended by the state that has some very specific requirements for tiny homes. Going on down the code set, no changes to the IMC or IPC. I mentioned the new NEC that was updated by the state. Our manufacturers have 180 days to come in compliance with that new NEC, National Electrical Code. No changes to the fuel gas code, IE, and then in Rule 2.7, which is the IECC, we have some changes regarding the air barrier checklist. Of course, we make no changes to the federal standards, which is Rules 2.8, 2.9, 2.10, and 2.11. 2.12 is the Division of Housing Installation Standards. We added tiny homes in there. 2.13 had no changes. 2.14 was alternate standards, and we added tiny homes there. And then 2.15 had no changes. So those are the major code changes that we did this time, just basically to the amendments that we already had in place. Administrative rules, no increase in fees. We added a 3-year registration fee for manufacturers. We added some late registration fees, second revision plan check fee of $100. We also added a multifamily inspection fee. We added a foundation installation inspection fee and waiver of fees, wording change. Rule 4 is the most significant to the manufacturers. We used to call them factories. We're now calling them manufacturers. That shifts some of the responsibility back to the company. In our opinion, factories may be producing could be producing units under different names. We wanted to make sure that we caught the manufacturers, and that's a more widely used term. So We're trying to get in the habit of saying registered manufacturer instead of registered factory. We've also changed our certification program for registered manufacturers, and we will be getting that out very, very soon. It's in final draft right now. We've updated the removal of that certified status, and we added some additions to the DOH plan review requirements. The Rule 417.3 adds the local wildfire risk requirements to that plan set that comes to us for review. And 417.4 clarifies plans are for a specific address. You know, it gets a little challenging when we have lot models come in and are sitting on a lot and then they go to a specific address. But for us to check a set of construction drawings, we do require an actual address. If that unit is sold off of a lot and goes to a different address, they have to, with a different set of local requirements, it has to be resubmitted for review. Terry, I'm going to jump into your question real quick. For a tiny home built before July 2023 and then moved and required electrical hookup, state electrical inspectors were not approved for power hookup with the set inspections state sticker. We currently do not have any state approved tiny homes that have gone through the program. So there are no state approved tiny homes. Everything that is built right now that's out there as tiny homes is an RV. They should be treated as RVs, and in my opinion, should only go into a RV park or RV style hookup that doesn't require state electrical. If they are asking you to do an installation of a tiny home RV onto a temporary or permanent foundation, then make sure that it is approved by the local building department for long-term occupancy. Most counties only have RVs authorization for, actually it varies. Elbert County was up to 180 days if they were building a home on the site. In most places, RV parks are only allowed 30, 60, 90 days to allow an RV sitting there. But tiny homes that you're seeing out there right now are not state certified tiny homes. State certified tiny homes will have a state insignia, and then you will call for an installation on a permanent or temporary foundation for those tiny homes. And then they get an installation insignia. So you should not be seeing anything out there right now with a state insignia.
I'm not seeing them with the state insignia, but I just had a lady that built a tiny home 3 years ago, approved by our county.
Okay.
Did the inspections on it. Well, she went to move it from one location into another location, and she can't get electricity hooked to it because the state electrical inspector says it has to have a set inspection first.
So, Terry, that's going to be a legacy issue that we run into these self-built tiny homes, right? If they move from one jurisdiction to the other, the local new jurisdiction has no record of the construction drawings or the plans or anything else. They're at risk. She basically has an RV. If it was approved and was inspected along the way for that local jurisdiction, it should be able to be moved as long as the other local jurisdiction will require it. But again, that's outside of my program.
Yeah, but
built as open construction, inspected as open construction and not closed construction.
that's true. But like I said, this was built in our county, inspected in our county, moved in the same county to a different location. So we permitted it, approved the move, inspected everything, but the state electrical inspectors won't release the power for her because they want me to put a set sticker on it. And I'm saying, no, I cannot put a set sticker on it because it's not under the state.
Yeah, right. Right.
Is this a stick?
Go ahead, Donnie.
Is this a stick built product? Was it put on an actual foundation system, or does that have a chassis?
No, it has a chassis.
Okay.
But it wasn't an RV because they didn't go through the RVI or NOAA. They went through the county, permitted it. We approved the plans. They set it in one location and then she needed to move it because she sold the property to another location.
Yeah, I would just talk to the county and see if they can help out with that situation, because like Sam said, it's outside of our purview, since it wasn't built to our state adopted standards. It's not going to receive an insignia from us.
Yeah, I think maybe a letter coming from you guys to the state electrical board, kind of stating that any home built before this would fall under local jurisdiction, not state, because they get a little confused on it.
Yeah, that might help, but let's take that one off and try to address it, Terry, at a future time. Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. All right, so running down some more of the Rule 4 changes. We changed some of the language around the expiration of plans. We added details for tiny home plans, and then additions to the involvement of third-party agencies in the certified manufacturer status. Rule 5 for our sellers, we added some a repeat of the requirement for manufacturers who sell direct to the consumer. We require now all bonds, letters of credit, certificates of deposit must include language that the Division of Housing be listed as the agency who can call that financial surety device. And then in Rule 512, there's a new requirement for sellers to notify buyers in areas of the state without a building department that they must get the foundation design approved and inspected by Division of Housing. So that is there's only certain entities that building codes and standards can force requirements on. And then in this case, it's the seller. Or if the manufacturer is selling direct to the consumer, think of these tiny home manufacturers, they have to inform the buyer that the foundations have to be approved, designed and approved by Division of Housing. So that's our hook and that's our requirement. We've also informed installers that if they go out in an area of the state, and this will go for inspectors that are doing independent inspections also. If you go out to a home to do an installation inspection or install or an installation inspection, that if the foundation is not approved, been designed and approved by DOH, not to do the install. And that's going to tick some people off, but that is going to be a hard requirement. And I'll digress in just a second and tell you that I don't think this is a bad thing. We run into issues where people have put up their own foundations, and then we get complaints that the unit has problem or the installation has problem. And sometimes it can be traced back to that foundation. It's not the installation, it's not the manufacturer structure, it's the foundation. So we're trying to, I don't think that's a bad thing for us to do. Rule 6 is specific to the installers. Tiny homes have been added. Tiny homes, like I said before, can go on a temporary or permanent foundation. As many of you know, that these factory built structures come with an installation handbook, or they defer to the state installation program. One of the things that we're recommending for tiny home buyers is that installation handbook come with 3 sections: an RV hookup, a temporary foundation hookup, and a permanent foundation hookup. So that's what we're expecting to see for installation of the tiny homes. Again, just a repeat on the foundation requirement. That design has to be from a licensed or registered design professional, which means an architect or an engineer that is registered with the state. So that design has to come in. The drawings have to come in for us to approve. They better have a architect stamp or an engineer stamp on them when they come to us. We'll review them and approve them, and then we will do the inspections of those foundations in areas of the state for factory-built structures that do not have a local building department. Really good question, Robert, on how are inspectors to know if the DOH has inspected the foundation. We will, we're still working out the details on that. I don't think we've had any foundations submitted yet, but we want to tie that to the installation asset that is created in Salesforce, and we're going to work that out.
Hey, Sam, just real quick. We actually have a form, our foundation form on our website. So it almost looks like a permit card that lists all the different inspections that are required for that foundation system, depending on the SOLS report. I think there's open hole inspection. We have the footing and rebar inspection, stem wall inspection with rebar. We also have perimeter drain on there if it's required by the SOLS report. We have a void inspection, and I believe there is basically, I think it's just the damp proofing, waterproofing of the foundation system if it's needed in the areas where there's living space. So we do have a permit card that it's somewhat of a permit card. We don't issue permits. It's just what it looks, right? Might be just easier to explain it as a permit card, but that's basically what it is. It's just an inspection checklist that each stage of or each phase of the foundation installation is going to get inspected. So it is on our website if you want to take a look at that. And so what we'll probably do is just have that on site, do the inspection, sign off on it, and that sheet will stay on site with the structure for inspectors, but also the locals, or not locals, I guess in this case there would be no locals, but the homeowner. And then if there's any questions, let's say you can't find the sheet, you can always reach out to us and see if they ever applied for the actual foundation plan review and the inspections.
Thank you, Donnie. Couple other changes to Rule 6. All manufactured homes, tiny homes, and multifamily must have an installation insignia, and all bonds, letters of credits, again, must be payable to the Division of Housing in case of an enforcement action. Rule 7, which is is our enforcement section, and then we only had a little bit of new text and some grammatical changes in those rules. Here's our resource page. If you guys, like I said, the PowerPoint will be up in a couple days. Hopefully I'll get it up by Friday with our website, with our rules, with the link on how to search statute, and then all the contact information, except mine for some reason. And you guys know how to find me, but Donnie's up there. Amelia Spinner is our program administrator. She's not able to be here today. And then we added some new email addresses for questions straight to manufactured buildings, the installation program, tiny homes, and the complaint process. All right, before I get into the discussion topics, are there any other questions on the new rules? Okay, I like that. Please let us know. So discussion topics, what we want to talk a little bit about is what we've already been talking about, right? Foundations and tiny homes, which is the big drivers of the tiny home bill. I want to talk a little bit about the complaint process. We'll talk about multifamily. Donnie will talk a little bit about all the insignias that we have out now. Donnie's going to talk about participating jurisdictions and on-site construction. And then we'll talk about, we've kind of been talking about local versus state responsibilities, but we'll clarify that, have some discussion around that, and then we'll talk about communication. All right, so foundations, I think we've pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about. Again, for areas of the state that do not have a local building department, as relates to factory built structures and hotels, motels, and multifamily installations, that it has to have a foundation designed and inspected by the Division of Housing. Any more questions on that topic? Okay. The next one, the complaint process. So by statute, we're responsible for consumer complaints that come in, and they come in a variety of sizes and shapes, right? In addition, I am the state appointed authority for HUD, for HUD code homes that are coming into the state. We have no HUD factories currently in the state, or HUD manufacturers building HUD units in the state. But if they were, then I would be responsible for that too. So let's talk about HUD first. If there's a complaint against a HUD home, what we do is we take a look at the consumer complaint. We take a look at the documents we have on file. And then we send out a inspector to do a complaint inspection. That complaint inspection will look at the installation and the manufactured home itself, and determine if there could be, or if there are deficiencies or defects in the installation or in the construction of the home. We then, since it's I have a HUD counterpart in almost every state. If there's a correction notice issued for the unit itself, it goes to the manufacturer and it goes to the HUD representative in that state. At that point, we're done with the unit. It is, and the corrections come from the HUD SA in that state and the manufacturer. If it's an installation correction notice, that correction notice has to be corrected by the installer. If there's a complaint against a registered seller, if they're not a registered seller, or if there were contract problems, we deal with that also as a seller complaint. I make it very clear to the homeowners that I talk to, and we're going to clarify it in writing with them now too, that we don't represent them. We are just we represent the state, and we're trying to make sure the unit is built per the construction drawings that were submitted, and that it was installed per the manufacturer's handbook or our installation program. What sometimes happens is we get complaints that they file a formal complaint to us. They think we're acting with them. They think we're going to take the people to court. That's not our process. Then they end up suing everybody, right? They'll sue the inspector, they'll sue the installer, they'll sue the seller, they'll sue the manufacturer, and they'll get a settlement, because that's an administrative civil court action that is different. And then they'll call me and say, okay, I've got a settlement, I want to close the complaint. And my answer is, have the correction notices been remedied for the installation and or the unit itself? If they say no, it's like, no, I cannot close the complaint. The manufacturer is still responsible for correcting any deficiencies and defects in the unit, and this installer is still responsible for correcting any installation issues. If the corrections are not made, we can red tag that home. But what we don't want to happen is a unit that has correction notices, open correction notices on it, being sold or relocated. Therefore, we will not close that complaint until it is fixed. So that's our responsibility in the correction program. question in the chat on whether we contact the local jurisdiction. If it's a participating jurisdiction, we might, but in general, no. But we could if we end up red tagging something, and we haven't red tagged anything that I know of in a long time. We ought to think about notifying the local jurisdiction that unit's been red tagged. Was there a specific question about local jurisdiction involvement in the complaint process? Or was it dealing with the on-site construction of the OC part of construction? OC? Okay, so oh, I'm sorry, your mic doesn't work. So Tony, any other thoughts on contacting locals during OC?
For OC stuff, our contact that we currently have, the process is the OC form, right? It's included as part of our plan review package once it's approved. And so locals, if you're receiving a modular product that goes to your jurisdiction, you should be asking for 2 sets of plans if you're wanting to look at the plans for approval for the state. The OC form is always going to be in the spec file. The plan set will not have OC in there. But just as a precaution, if you're not seeing an OC form, typically in the plan itself, you'll see specific items pointed out that'll say on site by others, or OSBO, or to be completed on site, things like that. One of the things that we do is just to Control F on the files and look for those terms, and they typically pop up on site. And if you see items like that, especially if it was approved and there was no OC form on it, there might be some things that were just not caught at the plan review part of it, and they had changed some things. As you know, these documents, we put security on the document itself, but there's always ways around that, especially if you print PDF, right? It basically just imprints everything that's on that plan. And if you made a copy of that, and you can make adjustments to that document. But the intent is we put locks on it so they can't edit the approved version that we have in the system.
If we find in our complaint inspection OC items that may not have been correctly noted during a local inspection, we will pull in the local jurisdiction and chat. We do that on a regular basis when we look at filing the correction notices on what has to be fixed. It's a partnership, and I should have emphasized that at the start of the call. We want to work very closely with our local jurisdictions to the greatest extent possible. We depend heavily on them. As you would expect, with only 3 inspectors, it's tough to get us around the state all the time, and so we value the local participating jurisdictions that are doing inspections for us. Good discussion. And I'll also clarify that the non-HUD homes work the same way, except we will hold the manufacturer responsible for those deficiencies or defects. And then we have the ability to take enforcement actions in Rule 7 against installers and manufacturers or sellers as necessary. The other thing that we often find with our side of our responsibility is that it's a fairly slow process, and the complainant wants the things corrected quickly. And sometimes our stuff drags on a little bit. That's why they jump into civil court, and then they start making corrections to the unit themselves, which is, we recommend not doing that, but we understand that happens. If we send out a correction notice, say for insulation to the manufacturer, and then the homeowner gets in there and fixes that himself, all we care about is that it is correctly insulated, right? That responsibility has then been assumed by the homeowner in that situation. And our correction notice would note that when we close out the complaint. Any other discussion on complaints? Anybody want to come help me with complaints? It's not the funnest part of the job. I can tell you that. Multifamily, let's jump to multifamily. We are now requiring multifamily registered installers. We have done a couple installer trainings, one in the Springs and one up north a little bit of Denver. I think it was Weld County or Loveland. That is now requiring that is their training. We're starting to see registrations come in for multifamily. So that is now a responsibility is or a requirement that all multifamily units going in use a multifamily registered installer. Also on, and I guess, Donnie, at this point, we're ready to talk a little bit about insignias.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go through this as fast as I can. I know I think we're right at time.
I've got another 30 minutes, but we're in that discussion phase. So yeah, we're okay on time, Donnie.
Okay. All righty. I guess, is there any questions about foundations, complaints, or multifamily registration when it comes to installations? No. Just to give you a heads up, if you look on your screen and you move your mouse around, you'll see at the bottom it says reactions. You click on that. There's a little section there to raise your hand. You go ahead and raise your hand if you do have a question. And if you can't unmute yourself, I'll just pick who's at the top of the list and unmute them so they can talk. Okay. So insignias, when it comes to insignias, probably one more thing here. If you look at the top of your screen in the black, you'll see it says view. Since the slide's still up, you probably won't see my screen because I'm probably just a little square on your computer. But if you click on the view and you go to the side-by-side speaker view, it'll split the slide and my image. But I'm going to show you some of these insignias that we have, and also the new insignias that we have.
So Donnie, let me unshare at this point, and that way we can all see you, right?
Okay. All right, am I still a little square to most of you? Again, if you just do the side-by-side speaker, I will pop up there larger on your screen.
You're full view, Donnie.
Okay, so what I'm going to show you is the new installation insignia, or not installation insignia, the new certification insignia for the construction of tiny homes. This is the technical color is like a magenta, but we call them pink insignias. It's like a metallic pink insignia. These are very similar to the silver ones that we have on hand that we used in the past for single family dwellings. But this is going to be the new insignia on tiny homes. The thing with these is that, as you know, if you've been dealing with modulars for a while, some structures come to your jurisdiction or go to the jurisdiction with an insignia and some don't, right? It really just depends on the factory and whether or not it has an OC inspection items listed on the plan of review, okay? But in most cases, I would say that tiny homes will have these when they leave the factory. Most tiny homes, when they're being produced, they're going to be a plug and play. So they're going to do everything at the factory. Nothing needs to be finished at the site location. All they have to do is connect utilities. So I would say in most cases, tiny homes will have these on the structure when it leaves the factory. But if you're a local jurisdiction or you are a independent third-party inspector who does the installation inspections, I would say if it's missing this, it should throw a red flag. Contact us and just ask, you know, hey, I got this structure here that I'm installing in this jurisdiction.
Hey.
Did this go through your program? Hey, Marcy. We'll let you know whether or not it has been. I know that might cause a little bit of a delay in the installation certification process, but we want to make sure that these homeowners are getting the correct certification through the state, right? Especially if they're buying from out of state and that builder is saying like, hey, we're selling Colorado state regulated tiny homes. It goes through the state of Colorado, and then they find out that it never went through our program, right? We want to make sure that they're protected. They get a certified product that has gone through the state and they're in compliance with the law. Okay. So this is again the certification of the construction of a tiny home. And then they will actually still receive the copper insignias. So this is a copper installation insignia for single family dwellings and tiny homes. This goes on all the single family dwellings, duplexes, and the townhouses. Okay. This is copper color, which when I say gold, because some people do call these gold, they're not gold, they are copper or orange. You'll see the difference between a gold insignia and a copper insignia. Hopefully you can tell on the camera. But the tiny homes will receive these as well. Again, single family dwellings, townhouses, and duplexes also receive these. So if you're a local jurisdiction trying to give a CO to a structure, make sure it has this insignia and also the certification insignia for the modular products, which I'll show you later. If it's a HUD home, they do not receive any silver insignias, but they do receive these. Anything that is manufactured at an offsite location will receive an installation insignia, except for commercial buildings outside the scope of multifamily definition. Okay. So before you issue a CO, make sure that there's a copper insignia on a single family dwelling, townhouse, duplex, tiny home, and also make sure that on a tiny home that there's a silver insignia. And then so when it comes to the single family dwelling, duplexes, townhouses, and just the single family dwelling itself, it will receive the silver insignia. This certifies the construction of that building. Again, a factory, depending on their registration status, it may come with this from the factory. And so just kind of clarify that across the board, everybody manufacturers has to register, or that manufacturers structures has to register as a manufacturer. But we also have one more tier above that, which is a certified manufacturer. A certified manufacturer can certify a structure at the factory as long as the structure does not have any OC items. Okay, so if you get a product that goes to the state and installed in your jurisdiction and has this already on there, that's because they're certified and they have no AC items or no OC items on it, which is the on-site construction items. Okay. If there is a certified factory that does have OC items, it's not going to come with this insignia, and then there's going to have to be a follow-up inspection, which is going to be on the OC form, which I'll get into, and then I'll get a little more detail on that when this will get placed on there. Okay. Is there any questions on those three so far? No? Okay. So the other insignia that we got that's new to the state is these are these black insignias. Okay. These black insignias are specific to multifamily structures like apartments, condos, live work units, anything that's defined within the multifamily definition within our rules will receive this insignia. We did not specifically put anything that was transient in nature under multifamily, because that's not something that we want to start, at least for installations. We're not going to do installations for anything that's transient, but apartment complexes, hotels, motel, or not hotels, motels, the R2 definitions, R3 and R4 that are specified in multifamily. Okay. But this black insignia will go into all the multifamily structures. Okay. When we place these insignias, when it comes to the certification of a structure, for single family dwellings and apartment or multifamily structures, each dwelling unit will receive a primary insignia. Okay. So if I'm talking about single family dwellings, townhouses, and duplexes, each dwelling will receive a silver insignia. But we also have floor tags, which is a certification for the additional boxes. Okay. So let's say it's a 3-box single family dwelling. One primary insignia will be applied. and 2 additional floor tags will be applied. Okay, so it signifies that the structure plus its boxes are certified through our program. Okay, same thing for our apartment complex. If it's a apartment, let's say it's a 52 unit apartment complex, there's going to be 52 unit or 52 primary insignias. But let's say each unit or each dwelling has 3 boxes to complete that unit, then it's going to be 1 primary, and then these 2 it'll be 2 black floor tags. Okay, so that's how we label these structures. All right. Now, one thing that we added, most of you might be familiar with the commercial blue insignias. The blue insignia goes into all the certified commercial structures. But the thing that we added was this blue floor tag, which I'm not sure why we didn't have in the past. We used to put primary insignias for each box instead of putting floor tags for any additional boxes, right? So now there's going to be, let's say it's a 3-box office, you're going to have 1 primary, and then you're going to have 2 floor tags for the additional boxes, okay? Any questions on those? No? Just let me know if there's anything that pops up in chat. Okay, so back to the black insignias. Again, these are for multifamily. So when it comes to multifamily, they're not only going to receive these black insignias for the dwellings or each dwelling certification, but the structure as a whole will receive a gold insignia. Okay, this gold insignia is for the installation of that structure. So it's only going to receive 1 of these. It's not going to receive 1 for each dwelling because we're certifying the structure as a whole as being installed and not each individual dwelling. Okay, so this will be placed somewhere, probably in the office, somewhere where it can be easily found. And then it shouldn't be removed just like any of the other insignias. So if you look at these little circular tabs that are right here, these are for tamper proof, so you can't tear it off and put on another structure. It will rip the insignia. Okay, so these will be placed somewhere where it can't be removed, but it can also be easily found. Alrighty, again, this is for the installation of multifamily structures. And then, sorry, I've got a few things all thrown around here. So just so you can see the color difference between the 2. So this is the copper color, this is the gold. All right, copper, single family dwellings, townhouses, and duplexes. Alrighty. We have some other insignias that you might not see because they're not out there that often. But we have this modification insignia. So let's say a structure did go through our program, and it did get certified, had the construction certified, it received, let's say it's received a silver insignia, and then they wanted to uninstall that structure and take it to a factory to get modified. Let's say they wanted to change the floor plan, change maybe add an additional bedroom or something like that. If it's done at a site or at an off-site location, it will receive this insignia in addition to the silver insignia that was originally applied to it. Okay. If the modification was to happen at the site location, it does not receive this insignia. If the modification was to happen at the site location, the local jurisdiction has full authority over that modification, and you would just permit just like any kind of remodel permit. Okay. Any questions on that? No? All right. So here's the next one. So this one's purple. It doesn't look like it, but it is purple. So I'm not sure if you could tell the difference on the screen. This is the blue insignia for commercial. This is a purple insignia for components. Now, component insignias are installed on a smaller portion of a structure that goes into a larger on-site completed structure, right? So to give you an example, the new Lutheran hospital that's right there on 76 and 70, right where that the transition, that new hospital that's right there, they have component insignias for all the bathroom groups because they built all the bathroom groups at an off-site location, and then they shipped them to the site location, installed those in that structure. All those bathroom groups received a component insignia. All right, so these are just components. It's a smaller portion of a larger building. Okay, it's not a complete structure like an office or a home or school trailer. And this is just a smaller portion. Okay, a component. All righty. Now we have this is the last insignia. This is green. It's kind of hard to tell on the screen, but it is green. It's like a forest green color. This insignia is an inspection only insignia. We apply these on structures that are going out of state. So we have agreements with Washington, Indiana. I think we have also with Nebraska and Montana. When the structure is being built in the state of Colorado, but it's not being installed in Colorado, it's going back to one of those other states. We place this insignia on that structure, letting that state know that we did the inspection of the unit through that agreement. And this is a way that they can tell that we actually certified the unit before it left the factory. Okay. We do have like the state of Washington. They'll send us they'll send us a gold insignia for the certification of their units. But we place both the green insignia and also the gold color insignia on the structure, so they know that we looked at it and that we gave them the okay to apply the insignia at the factory. Okay, so that's the insignias. Is there any questions on insignias?
Donnie, so just to clarify, I've got a triplex.
Mhm.
Okay, three living units, 4 boxes. I would have 3 primaries and 1 secondary label on that, correct?
So each dwelling receives its own primary, and then so you said it's a 4-box unit, or is it 4 boxes for each unit?
No, it's a triplex in 4 boxes, 3 dwelling units, 4 boxes.
Okay, and so is that 4th box being shared by all?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes it actually splits across 76 foot. It splits into 3 across a 2-story structure.
Okay, and that's in that situation, we probably just put the floor tag in the, maybe, let's say it was unit 101, 102, 103, and 104, right? Or 102, 101, 102, 103. We'll probably just put it in the main unit, the additional floor tag.
Okay, so that's all we would need, the 3 primaries and the 1 floor tag.
Exactly.
In that case, so we have 4 tags for 4 boxes.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, each box receives its own insignia, but it's just, there's always going to be 1 primary with the code information and the plan review number and all that stuff on there. And then additional floor tags will just receive an insignia number on it. Okay. The insignia is assigned to each box. There's, in your case with the 4 boxes, you purchase 4 insignias. And so those 4 insignias get put into those units, depending on whatever dwelling unit it's going to be assigned to. Okay. Any other questions? No? What was the next item on the list, Sam?
Participating jurisdictions.
All right, participating jurisdictions. So I'm not sure how many building departments are on the call right now, but we do have a participating jurisdiction program. This allows a local jurisdiction to apply or register with us as a participating jurisdiction, which allows them to regulate the installation of the structure. But when you're regulating the installation of the structure, you're regulating it to the state adopted requirements for installation. So you're not making up your own. You can have your own installation process, but it has to follow at a minimum our standards. Okay, that is going to be in and I believe it's in our rule 6, I believe it is, for the installers inspectors section. You just can't adopt your own and make up your own policies on how they need to install. Okay, it has to follow our minimum requirements. Okay, but that registration process, you can contact Yesenia Arujo. She is an MHAP coordinator, so she does anything installation and inspectors for installations and participating jurisdictions. All right. The process is not that hard. The other thing is in the past, we actually used to charge insignia fees for these, and I think a lot of jurisdictions got out of the program because they were being charged for the insignias. Back in 2018, Mo Miskell, when he was the director at the time, he did change that. So now if you're a participating jurisdiction, you do not have to pay for insignias, and that's because you are doing us a service by providing those installation inspections at your in your local jurisdiction. If you are a installer or an inspector at the site location where there's a participating jurisdiction, you are not allowed to certify those installations. So when you are a participating jurisdiction, you have first call on the installation. So let's say you became a participating jurisdiction, you did it for 2-3 years, but for some reason you just can't keep up because you're so busy. You can allow somebody to certify installation on your behalf, but they should probably get some written permission from you to do that. As somewhat related to the manufacturer, we have another registration tier when it comes to the installation. So if you're an installer, across the board, you're registered, but you can also apply for the certification. So if you get that certification status, you are allowed to certify your own installations. But if you are installing in a jurisdiction with a participating jurisdiction, or that is a participating jurisdiction, you cannot certify your own installation. That local jurisdiction has to certify your installation unless they give you permission to certify your own installation. Okay. And then again, inspectors, if you're an inspector who's hired to certify installation and participating jurisdiction, just let them know, like, hey, I can't certify this installation until the participating jurisdiction gives me permission to do so. Okay. All righty. Is there anything I missed, Yesenia or Sam, on participating jurisdictions?
And Donnie, with the participating jurisdictions, the local gets to collect the installation fee, right?
Yeah, so if you're a participating jurisdiction, you have full authority to charge your own fees. I believe our installation fee or inspection fee is like $200, I believe. I can't remember, I have to look at the rules. But let's say, it costs you more than $200. It looks like it's $200. So let's say it costs you more than $200 to do that inspection. And to tell you the truth, $200 for us is not really much, right? Because it cost us probably $100 to drive to some of these locations. And we had to stay at a hotel room or in a hotel room, and it cost us over $100 to do that. So we're actually losing a little bit of money. So it might cost you the same amount, if not more, to do the inspection. But that's up to you on how you want to fee them in that. Might be part of your permit process, whatever it may be. That's totally up to you on how you charge them. Okay.
And then briefly, Donnie, maybe talk about on-site construction. And then the other topic is local versus state responsibility.
Okay. Was there any other questions on participating jurisdictions? No? Okay. All right. So, yeah, Yesenia, you have.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out on the insignias, you do get these free of charge as a participating jurisdiction, but you do have to report these insignias. We do have the online platform Salesforce. So if you are a participating jurisdiction and don't have access to that, feel free to reach out to me and I can set up that account so that we can have those reports submitted to us.
Yeah. Thank you, Yesenia. Yeah, if you're a participating jurisdiction, you should have been put into the system at the time that you became participating. But there was a transition from in 2018. Everything was moved to Salesforce, and nothing was processed on paper anymore. So if something wasn't transferred at that time, please just make sure that you're in our account. Okay. But yeah, it is your responsibility to report these insignias. That's as part of the responsibilities of being a participating jurisdiction. You say that you want to take charge in the certification of these, which means you have to take on the responsibility of reporting the installations. Okay. And then if you do give somebody else permission to do it on your behalf until you get caught back up, then they can go ahead and report it on their account. All right. So OC, on-site construction. So as Sam mentioned earlier, it went from AC, which was alternative construction, to OC, which is on-site construction. Just to give you a quick background about that, in the past, the statute at the time was a bit confusing. So alternative construction, that term alone, when you talk about building codes, it just means an alternative method of construction, right? And the building codes. And so it was confusing locals, right? And it was confusing to me when I first started too, because I was like, well, isn't it just an alternative method of construction? But it also what it actually meant was that there was something that was not completed at the site, off-site location, that needed to be completed at the site location to complete the compliance of the structure. Okay. The other thing that was confusing in statute was that the way that was written, it said that an AC, alternative construction item, is an item that is shipped with the unit from the factory to be installed on site, right? But a lot of the factories are saying, well, we're not shipping these with the unit. It's coming from a local vendor who's supplying those materials, and they're completing it at the site location. So by definition in statute, they weren't required to list them as AC. So what we did is we updated the form to include local inspection items, because by statute, those items would not fall within our jurisdiction because they were items that were being built on site outside of the AC program. And so the locals had to look at those. So we wanted to make sure the locals were aware that there were items that were being completed at the site location outside of our purview. And so we had two sections, AC and local inspection items. Now with the HB 2242 or HB 22-1242, we updated that language in statute, and now it's any item that is to be completed at the site location needs to be listed as an OC item. Okay, so and that's to complete the compliance of the structure. So if it's anything that's code related to complete the compliance of the structure as approved on the plans, has to be listed on that form. We got rid of local inspection items, so there's no more local inspection items. It's only going to be OC, which is going to fall under our jurisdiction. It helps us, and it helps eliminate any confusion of whether or not the locals need to look at anything, at least if they're required to look at anything. Okay, but to kind of clarify that form itself, we updated that form not only from changing the AC and taking off local inspection items, but we in the revisions of that form, we put it's probably about 5 pages long, but it explains everybody's responsibility from the factory to the local jurisdiction, our responsibility, and then if you're a third-party agency, right, and the local fire department. It breaks down their responsibilities of the form. When you're a local jurisdiction who receives this form, we want confirmation that it actually was received. And so there's a section there that that says that you received it. It says building department representative, so it could be the building official or anybody the building official delegates as being responsible for signing that. So it could be your plan reviewer, maybe a senior inspector, whoever it may be. It doesn't really matter to us as long as that person was authorized through that jurisdiction to sign off the form. And then you just basically sign the form, and then below that signature, there's 2 boxes there. It says accept and then defer. Okay, if you receive this form and you see that there's items that need to be completed at the site location, those OC items, you could accept the responsibility of doing the inspection on those items, or you can defer them back to the factory. Okay. And then at that point, the factory has 2 choices. They can either hire a third-party agency to do the inspections, or they can hire the Division of Housing to do those inspections. Okay. But if you are a local jurisdiction and you accept the responsibility of doing those inspections, it's a great thing. It helps out not only the state, but it also helps out the homeowner or the contractor who's on site, because you're there at in the jurisdiction. It's easier for you to get to the inspection. You can get there a lot sooner than we can. And so it helps with the timeline. But when you do accept the responsibility of the OC items, you are inspecting to our approved plans, to our codes, to our standards, our amendments. Okay, you're not inspecting to your codes, your amendments, any local ordinances. It's being inspected to our state requirements. Okay. And so just be aware of that. So if you're on the 2021 and you accepted the responsibility, you're not inspecting to the 2021 code. You're inspecting to the 2018 amended codes by the state. Okay.
Donnie, thank you. We're close to time. Chad, yes, I will share the link, or Christina, if you could reshare that link to the news and alert, or the news page, that would be great. For those that want to get a copy of the recording, it is under building codes and standards. There's a new page for news and alert with all the previous recordings, and the PowerPoint. Chad, yeah, those time changes can get tricky, but we'll take care of you. We are very close to time. Wanted to just kind of open it up for discussion. We'll see if there's any other questions. We will stay on for a few minutes after I hit the stop recording button in case there's any final follow-up. Any other general, thank you, Christina. Any other general questions? The last two pieces on this were local versus state responsibilities, which Donnie kind of covered under on-site construction. The key part there is if it's a unit coming in with a two-car garage or a detached garage, that detachment to garage is your responsibility to review the plans and your responsibility to do the inspections. You're also responsible, of course, for permitting, and that doesn't fall in our program.
Yeah.
And the communication, we are open to communication. If you guys want specific training, let us know. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover on tiny homes, on what they are, and what a state certified tiny home is. If there's any questions around that, let us know. Anybody else have anything before we stop the recording?
Yeah, I've got one quick question for Donnie. I think it's quick. On the OC letter.
Okay, go ahead.
So it's changed on the OC letter to everything's listed. So I want to clarify, that's an all or nothing for the local folks, right? They can't pick and choose.
That is correct. So if they're going to take on the responsibility, they need to look at everything, right? We don't want to have mixed records. That's the same process that we do at the factory. You can have multiple agencies who inspect, but that agency, once they start a box, they finish that box, right? Same thing with these OC items. If you are accepting it, you are accepting all the items. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is we often see when we start splitting these inspections up, you guys are getting inspection fees. We're not getting if we start splitting them up because it's not two inspections. It just makes sense for you guys to do all or none. If you have problems with that, then or concerns with that, let us know.
Hey, Tim, I just want to add real quick to the responsibilities. I want to make it clear here because we do have some building departments here. When it comes to the plan approval from the state, that is a final approval. Okay. So when we approve those set of plans, you receive that stamped copy of the plans. It is your responsibility to only oversee anything that is being constructed at the site location. So decks, garages, detached garages, patio covers, any of that that's being attached to the structure that's not being done at the factory is within your purview. Okay. You cannot re-review those plans and start asking for additional requirements because we review the plans. It's up to us for the final approval. If you do see something on the plan that stands out to you as a life safety hazard or something, please address us. Do not send comments back to the factory. Okay. If there's something that we during that conversation we find that there is an issue, we will reach out to the factory. We'll have them update the drawings. Okay. That's not your responsibility. It's actually in statute that you're not to re-review the plans. You're not to charge a fee for the review of those plans unless the review of those plans is for items that are being done at the site location. Okay. I wanted to mention that. And then also when it comes to the products, we have different products, right? We have modulars, HUDs, mobile homes, and tiny homes. All right. When it comes to modulars, HUD homes, and tiny homes, that jurisdiction falls under us for the construction. All right. If it's a mobile home, anything built to prior to 1976 is within the jurisdiction of the local authorities. All right. So if it's built prior to 1976 and it doesn't meet your building code requirements, you can require them to build to your current building codes. But if it's a modular, HUD, or tiny home, if it's built and approved and certified at the time of construction, during that code cycle, that approval is final. So as long as the winter design temp, the snow load and wind load is compliant with your jurisdiction's design criteria, then it's allowed to be installed in your jurisdiction unless your jurisdiction has specific zoning codes that do not allow those types of structures. All right. You cannot require them to update to your current code.
And Donnie, let me add to that is that once the unit is installed and they want to do modifications to a unit, that's on you guys. So if they want to gut and rebuild or add a room or something like that, they have to apply to your building department for a permit after it's installed. Anything that's they want to change pre-installation, we have a way to do that. It'll require a mod to the construction drawings before it's installed. Any other questions?
Hopefully you guys didn't already cover this. If we have area like Kit Carson or Norwood where they use DORA to do their electrical inspection, does that mean they need to use DORA to do all of their inspections, or the locals can do what they can and they can rely on DORA to finish out the things they can't?
So I guess it depends. I'm gonna put it that way. So let's say that there's a local jurisdiction that doesn't have a electrical and plumbing inspector, right?
Mhm.
But the locals want to accept those OC items. They have to coordinate with the DORA plumbing and electrical inspectors for any items that relate to their inspection. Okay. But when it comes to the construction, everything's done through us, through our program. We don't go through DORA for those. But any site utility connection and stuff like that, that's going to be done by the locals and within their purview. But hopefully that answers your question. So like I said, it really just depends on the situation of how that is. Let's say it's a jurisdiction without a building department. And of course, DORA does still regulate the plumbing and electrical for those jurisdictions. If there's any OC items that are there, we can talk with the state electrical plumbing and electrical board and see what they plan on doing, but they typically only have the authority over the plumbing and electrical, right? So if that's the scenario where it's in a jurisdiction without a building department, then it should just automatically get deferred back to the factory, and the factory has to decide whether or not they're going to use a third-party agency or a division of housing. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we've had it where they had local building, they just didn't have plumbing and electrical. So I just want to make sure we were doing that right.
Yeah, so anything that's done at the site location and there's no plumbing or electrical, it automatically you have to go to the DORA electrical and plumbing board. All right,
Okay.
for those items.
Cool. And if they don't have local building at all, then we'll get in touch with you guys and get it coordinated so we get either a third party or someone else out there.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
You
All
bet.
right. And just real quick, if there's OC items, it's not gonna, the structure is not gonna have the insignia until after those OC items have been inspected and passed all their inspections. Once it does that, depending if it's the locals or the third-party agency, if they are the ones doing the certification of the OC items, the factory has to coordinate the delivery of that insignia to place. So if the factory just sends somebody out after the inspection's passed to place that, or they send it to the seller to place it, whatever the case may be, or they give it to a third-party agency, they can place it. If it's going to be done through the Division of Housing, you have to pay for that insignia, and we'll go ahead and place that insignia on your behalf. Okay.
Because DORA, especially on the electrical side, will not do their final inspections until they see that silver insignia.
Mhm.
All right, anybody that have anything else?
There's a bunch of comments. I'm a little behind on them. No, I think it's just emails and
Yep.
Yep.
It's all the contact information there. There's also contact information on the slide deck. I do not have any other webinars planned on the new rules at this point in time. Like I said, we've gone through all the major stakeholder groups. We might do one at some point on complaints and how those are processed by the state, but I'm going to take a little bit of a break and get ready for a technical advisory committee meeting, which will probably be the next public meeting that I hold. And with, again, just to emphasize, you guys are great partners. Call us anytime you have questions on codes, state codes, or becoming a participating jurisdiction. We'll be happy to travel to your location if available, or we can do quick calls like this. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now.